Hi, and welcome to this session about setting up your release pipeline for SharePoint in Azure. So my name is Vincent Barrett. I'm a SharePoint MVP. I'm based in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I work as a product team tech lead at Negotiation Technologies. And if you guys want to contact me, you have my email address, my Twitter handle, my blog, my LinkedIn account, and so on. So, who's that session for? So that session is targeted towards developers, DevOps, QA people, and deciders who want to improve the way they deliver software and developments in SharePoint. Today's objectives: we will first talk on a high level of application lifecycle management, and then we will talk about how to set up builds and build definitions for SharePoint-related projects, either full trust solutions or SharePoint applications. And we will also talk about testing and quality assurance for SharePoint projects in the SharePoint context and so on. So today's agenda, we will have first a general introduction of software lifecycle. Then we'll talk about Visual Studio Online in Azure. And then we'll talk about the new build system and also the previous build system. And we will have a high-level introduction about how to deploy and test applications or developments for SharePoint. And we will finish this session by a short conclusion. Ready? So let's talk first about the software lifecycle, where everything begins. First, when you start developing something, you have the business people, the marketing people, the investors, the customers, depending whether you are a product company or a software development company or a consulting company. They come up with an idea, a business plan, a need, or something they want to achieve with a software. Based on that, they communicate these needs to the development team and the product owner or the project manager, depending on how you are organized and how you deliver software every day. And you first start by planning your development. So it can be either through agile processes, or you can use more complicated and complex planning systems like Cascade and so on. Once you have done that, you also work on the architecture of your software, on your solution, on your development, and then you start developing. Once you've started developing a new application, you use, in order to do that, you use a source control, an IDE, and so on, and you start building your application. Once you've done that, you start testing your application to make sure it's working as expected and it's working properly, respects all the performances and so on. And you start putting your application into production and releasing the main build, or depending on what you're doing exactly. And once your application has gone to production, you generally have some feedback coming from the production, either some performances issue or something that the users want to be developed or be delivered differently. And you start all over again to plan and then architecture, develop, test, and put it in production, and so on and so on and so on. And it's kind of a iteration wheel, or a continuous development wheel. And also, once it has gone to production, if it's a product or a software or something you sell to people, not a consulting or development, you hand out deliveries to sales people and marketing people, so they can start working on the market and try to sell the product or the service you are building. So that's generally how it works in software lifecycle. There's a lot of other elements coming into consideration, but as a simple recap, that's generally how software lifecycle is handled in most software development businesses. Today we will focus on mostly this part, which are the development part and the test part. So from the point where you already have something planned, you know what you want to build and you are organized to deliver it, and to the point where you ship the deliveries and the build to production, so we can actually do something with it. So between these two steps, you have two other steps, which are the development and the test, and we will mostly focus on this part, especially on the build part and the test part, or the QA part of the software lifecycle. So now that we know that we're going to focus on this area, let me introduce you to two services delivered by Microsoft. So the first one is Microsoft Azure. So I'm sure you have all already heard about it, so I won't spend much time on it. But just as a short recap, it's Microsoft Cloud. It's one of Microsoft Cloud platform, and what it delivers is infrastructure as a service, product as a service, and some softwares as a service, as you will see. All of the platform ready to either set up, play with, or just use as a service. You have literally tons of services provided. Microsoft has more than 50 product teams working on these different services, and it covers a lot of things and a lot of needs you might have, from the again infrastructure as a service up to the software as a service. So if you're not very familiar with Azure, check it out. You have tons of things and very interesting things to learn about it. And as I already said, we'll take the assumption that you already heard about it, you know what it is, and you have a general idea of what it does. Now let's talk about Visual Studio Online. Visual Studio Online is a service, software as a service coming out from Azure. It's actually team formation server, but as a service. So you don't have to manage anymore all the servers, the databases, the network, or these sort of things. You only care about using it as a developer, and you don't care about managing the servers and stuff. One of the good things is that it's updated more frequently than an on-premises service. So every 3 weeks, I guess, they release updates to this service. It can be either small updates, like the button changes place, or they updated the way you authenticate, or things like that, or brand new features coming out for free to the service. Whereas with Team Formation Server, you have to apply patches and to update the system, and those patches come out every 3 months, basically. So it's a great thing to have update more frequently. The licensing model is a pay per user and per build time. We will detail the second one later during this session. But basically, we only pay for your users. So it doesn't depend on how many team projects you have. It doesn't depend on how much source code do you have. It doesn't depend on how many commits you make every day. It only depends on how many developers you want to work with in that service and on that platform. And basically, it has everything from Team Formation Server, except a few things which are not yet in the service. So those few things are the release manager. So I don't know if you've heard about it, but in 2013, Microsoft acquired AppCycle Release Management, and they put it into the TFS server bit, so you can do some release management and so on. And this is not yet in Visual Studio Online. Also, the SharePoint integration is not here anymore. So with TFS on premises, you have the ability to have what we call some team sites to be able to drop some documents and calendars and a few things like that. And this integration is not part of Visual Studio Online. The process template customization is not yet here too. So the idea is when you're on the planning side of a team project, you can enter either work items, user stories, bugs, tasks, and those items have a number of columns and metadata you can add to those items. And if you want to have specific or personal or custom metadata, you can personalize the process templates. But you can't do that yet on Visual Studio Online. though they are working actually right now on delivering this capability. So it will probably come soon to the online version of TFS. And the last thing you don't have is the data warehouse capability. So with TFS on premises, you have the ability to connect that to reporting services and to track reports on the commits, build qualities, and a lot of things happening within TFS. That's not part of Visual Studio Online. Visual Studio Online, but you can replace it and you can use Power BI if you want to do some reports on what's happening within your source control and your application delivery industry. So now that we have introduced Azure and Visual Studio Online, we will talk about the build system of Visual Studio Online, but for SharePoint. And I will try to, every time I introduce a new concept or a new feature, I will tell you if whether it's available on premises or not, and if it's coming on premises or not. So you know if you are on premises or if you are on Visual Studio Online, you know what are the differences and what you can expect right now and what's coming up. Also, please take notes that this session is pre-recorded, so I'll be on the live chat while this session plays. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask during the session. I will try to answer as many as possible during the session. So the build system of Visual Studio Online or TFS services is meant to have automated builds. What it means is let's forget 2 minutes about Visual Studio Online or TFS, and let's say a customer calls you and he wants the latest build or release of the software you're developing or working on, or this SharePoint application you're working on. If you don't have any automated build in place, what it means is you have to get the latest version or the wanted version of the sources, and then manually build the application or the solution, and then ship it to the customer. And this is when it's simple, it doesn't take a lot of time. But when you have to package things, create an installer, and based on that, rename files, maybe magnify some JavaScript and so on, the build steps can take a lot of time, and it's really time consuming when you have to do that manually. The other thing is because you are on a dev machine, the dev machine itself can impact the outcome of the build. So, for example, I don't know if you guys knew it, but when you do SharePoint solutions, you deploy VLMs in the GAC, the global assembly cache of the machine. So now let's imagine you have a certain version of your assemblies in the cache, and you build your new solution to ship it to the customer. It might impact the outcome of the build process of Visual Studio if you already have the assemblies in the cache. So it's very important to have the most neutral platform when you're trying to build solutions to have some release you want to ship to the client or to your service, because you don't want to have any development component or anything else on the dev machine impacting the outcome of what you're trying to build. So for those two reasons, to have a constant quality and to save time, to save your time or your team's time, what you want to set up is some automated build. You want this build process not to take your time and to always have the same outcome. So if we talk about build in TFS and also in Visual Studio Online, you have currently two options. The first one being the XAML build workflow, so the XAML build definitions. So the way it works is you have a build process template, which is defined via the workflow foundation, the Windows workflow foundation, and you have some steps and logical behind that will describe what's the process behind building your application or your solution. You might want to first update the local copy of the sources you have, and then use the Visual Studio to build the sources, then do some maybe JavaScript modification, then do some packaging and so on. So this process template will describe what happens when you trigger a build. Once you have the build process template, you map that with the build definition, which will be the relationship between the process and where are the sources plus certain parameters or settings. And with that, you can trigger or query the build, and it will take the sources, apply the process, and give you the outcome of this workflow. The problem with that is that it's hard to debug. You have to, every time you make a modification to the workflow, you have to commit it to the repository, so that takes time, it's hard to debug, it's not very user-friendly. And the other problem with that is you can only edit that with Visual Studio. So for developers not working in Visual Studio, like we have more and more, like we've seen recently with PHP, Node.js, and other Python and other languages, which are now able to communicate with Microsoft services like Office 365, like Azure, and so on. Those guys, we want to be able to work on our stuff without having to necessarily have to install Visual Studio. So it's another pain point of this system. And also it requires a controller plus an agent to be set up on the build machine. So basically how it works is you use the TFS installation media and you say, okay, I want to install a controller plus some agents, 1 to many agents. And this is not updated automatically. So if Microsoft releases a new update for the whole Visual Studio stack, you have to go on each machine, get your update, install it, it brings the machine down, and so on. It takes a lot of time. So it's not really a great experience, and it takes a lot of time to maintain a classic build system or XAML build system, as we call it, in place and working properly. And the last thing is the third-party tools are very hard to integrate. So if you want to use some Grant or Gulp or other tasking systems or other third-party building or packaging stuff or anything like that, it's very hard to integrate those tools with this XAML definition build system. So basically, what Microsoft did like 3 months ago, we came out with a new build system, which is called, you'll find in the documentation, it's called Build 2015. And the way it works is based on JSON definitions. So it's not anymore a full process with maybe loops or conditions or stuff like that. It's just steps, one after another, that you work on, and we'll see that later on with the demonstration. So it's based on JSON, so it's very open and it's easy to export. The editor to work on that is web-based, so anybody who has a modern browser is able to work on the build definitions and to set up the build process for your database. It has a lot of third-party integrations. Actually, all the tasks you will have available within this new Build 2015 system are open, so they are on GitHub. So if you have anything that you don't find and you think it will be useful for the community, go ahead, go on VSO-task. It's actually VSO-agent-tasks, and just do some pull requests to integrate your favorite third-party building, tasking, testing stuff. And again, the link is in the notes. And another great thing is the agent auto-update. So if they publish new tasks, if they publish new version of the agent or anything like that, the agent will update itself. It only takes a matter of minutes. So that's one more thing you don't need to care about anymore, which is great. So let's talk about the agents, because in both cases you need agents to actually run the agent tool and then pull your sources, do the build stuff, and push the outcome into your source control or other places. So you have two options with Visual Studio Online. The first one being the hosted agents. So basically what they do is Microsoft has tons of virtual machines on Azure, which are available for everybody, and it's behind. You don't have to take care about it anymore. It's just build as a service. So you just queue on your build, and Microsoft itself will take care of finding an available agent that you don't manage at all. They manage it for you, including the patching, the update, the provisioning, and so on. And they will put your sources on it, build the stuff using the build process, and then run some tests if you want to run some tests, and then put the outcome to your Visual Studio Online tenant. And then you have the install agents. So you also have the opportunity to yourself set up install agent, build agent, and maintain the OS, the patching, the dev tools, and so on. And these agents, you can either host them on Azure or on your on-premises data center. So if you have free machines and available CPU and memory and so on premises, just go ahead and use it. The only thing those machines require is Windows Server 2000 and something, I guess, and an internet connection. So as long as they can reach the internet, they will be able to run the build agent. Just to get back at the hosted agents, the way they build you is based on the build minutes. So let's say your build process takes 10 minutes to complete. They will build you based on how many builds you make a month and how many minutes you use a month. So that's why when I was talking about the licensing part at the beginning of the session, I was saying that it depends only on the users you have and also how many times you build. So that's something you might take into consideration. Would you rather have to maintain and patch a system on premises but not have to pay for the build time, or not take care of it anymore and pay for the build time? It's up to you. And basically at first they give you 4 hours a month of free build every month. So that comes for free. So if you have small teams with small projects and you don't need tons of build systems or minutes, they will provide you some for free. The other thing you have to know for the SharePoint Works developers is the hosted agents. They only have the foundation edition of SharePoint installed. So if you have requirements towards the server edition, like the publishing, like the machine translation service, like the enterprise search, and anything like that, you will need to set up your own agent. But if you don't, you can go ahead and even do full trust solutions. It will work as is. Alright, so enough talking. Let's start with the demos. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the Visual Studio Online. So by default, when you log on, so I'm going to demonstrate you the production environment we use in my company, Negotiation Technologies, every day. As you can see, we have a number of projects right now. I will demonstrate to you through all the demos, applications or projects we're working on every day. So when you connect to Visual Studio Online, you will have your tenant name.visualstudio.com, and that will be the address for the web endpoint for the browser, but also for the team information system connection when you have to add the connectivity to the service. The first thing you're going to want to do is going to the general control panel of the whole service and go to agent pools. So this will only work with build 2015 agents, and what it's going to do, it's going to list you all your pools of agents. So you have the hosted one, which as I introduced earlier is the hosted agents maintained by Microsoft for you. So if you queue anything on this pool, it will use your and consume your build minutes. And then you have the default one or any other pool you wanted to create if you wanted to create new pools using this button, and it will list all the agents enrolled in this pool. Basically, what I did to have those three agents, so those two are running on premises, just running next to me, and this one is running on Azure, but we shut it down because we don't need free build machines. What I did is I just installed a Windows Server 2012 R2, but again, I don't think this is the requirement. I think you can have a earlier version of Windows. And I installed Visual Studio on it, plus the Azure SDK, plus the Office SDK, plus a few other tools like DNX, like Grant, Gulp, and NPM. You will see that later on. And then I just downloaded the agent installation tool, which is basically a setup of PowerShell connects and run it on the machine. When you do that, it asks you what are the credentials. Do you have which pool do you want to be in? Do you want to run it as a service or just as a one-time application, and stuff like that to help you set up your agent. It's very straightforward. You just have to answer every question the PowerShell dialog asks you, and you're done. It takes the agent itself takes maybe 5 minutes to set up. The longest part is to install Visual Studio. Once you've done that, you can see that you have this console. You can see the availability of the agent. So if I were to install patches on PD02, I would take it offline, to say this is not anymore available to clean new builds. So nobody tries to build something on my machine while I'm upgrading the machine and updating the patches of the OS or whatever what. And once it's available and once I'm done, I can check that again, so it's available for everybody to build stuff on it. And the great thing about it is, because this is a pool, Microsoft, the VSO controller will take charge of dispatching the builds queries on the build machine, and it will also do something great. You have the availability or the capability to declare some system capabilities. So, for example, this one has Grunt and Gulp installed, and I will say that later on with the build definitions. But you have the ability to say on your definition, okay, my build definition requires Gulp to be installed in order to work properly. Otherwise, it won't build because I don't have all the tools I need, and so on. And so, based on that too, it will take care of the dispatch for you, and you don't have to take care about it. And the great thing is I can see the status and put agents online or offline within from that console. I don't have to log on the machine and open the TFS agent console and say turn it off and so on, like we used to do with XAML definitions. The build 2015 system, the whole system with the new agents, with the new console and so on, is not yet available on premises. It will be available when the TFS 2015 comes available as an on-premises product, but it's not yet available. If you want to build right now on premises, you only have the ability to use XAML build definitions, which work a bit differently, but the setup of that is a bit more complicated, but it's very well documented on the internet, so that's why I'm choosing to demonstrate the new things right now. Once you've done that, you can go to your projects and start working on the build settings. Let's say we have a look at Oceanic. So Oceanic is one of our products. Basically, it does automatic translations for SharePoint on premises. So it's full trust solutions, old school way to build stuff. And yeah, that's basically what it does. It does automatic translation on for SharePoint on premises, and it's a full trust solution. With the new, if you click on the gear of a team project, you will be redirected to the team project settings. And what you can see here is you have new tabs, and the first one being services. And what you can see here is we have continuous deployment for one of the services we sell to our customers. And basically what you can add from the endpoints is either some Azure web applications, cloud services, web roles, and so on to deploy to. Or you can also add new other service endpoints like Chef, Generate, GitHub, and so on. For a personal project, for example, what I've done is my project is a community project, and so the sources are on GitHub, but the whole building and population for the Nugget packages is automated by Visual Studio Online. And so I've added the service endpoint for GitHub. This is how it works. So it will help you either to get some data from a certain place or to push some outcomes within the build process to certain places. So this is what is super important. And again, you can also add some generic endpoints. So this is for anything which is not basically supported by VS Online, but you want to secure the logins or the app secrets IDs or stuff like that, and you don't want to have that within your build system. You want to hide that because this part is only for team project administrators, but the build part can be for a team member. All right. Now let's have a look to the build processes itself. So the first one I'm going to demonstrate is again Oceanic, so a full trust solution. If we go to the build tab here, the first thing you can see is we have two areas or categories of builds. We have example build definitions and the build definitions, which is actually the build 2015 definitions. The way this works is we used to have example build definitions for our product, but when build 2015 came out, we saw a lot of advantages, even before it came out because we were on the preview, and so we decided to migrate the new to the new build system. Basically, how it works is you have the build definition, and here directly from the web you can edit your build definition. And again, basically what it does, what it is it's a set of steps executing one after another, and you have different options to specify for each step. If we have a closer look to our build definition for Oceanic currently, what I have first is an npm install. Why do I have that? Is because we do some JavaScript modifications in order to optimize the performances of our products once it is set up. So first, in order to be able to do that, I will need to install the npm, so Node Packet Manager packages, which will allow me to do the steps or to use the other modules. And once I have that, so in my npm install, I described that I needed grunt, I needed a few other stuff, and once I've done that, I can then run the grunt step, which will allow me to specify which JavaScript file I want to modify and so on. I also have a few other PowerShell steps, so this is great too, because if you have anything you need but you don't find the already existing steps, you can also always use some PowerShell to do it yourself, doing a bit of scripting. And the recommendation I have for you guys is don't try to make this huge PowerShell script which does everything, including the coffee, mailing the DevOps admin, and so on. Just do some very littlest possible PowerShell scripts, so if anything goes wrong, you can debug it or disable it if you don't need it, and it will be way easier to maintain. What these PowerShell scripts do is they increment the assembly version, do a couple of replacements, and so on. And after that, we have the Visual Studio build. So this is the one which will take care of taking the solution, the Visual Studio solution, taking all the projects, and building all the stuff, and so on. A very important thing when you're trying to build for SharePoint is to specify as an argument /p : is packaging equals true. So because if you don't do that, either if you're working on SharePoint solutions or on SharePoint applications, the build system won't by default package your solution or your application. So if you want to have your WSP or your .app at the end, don't forget to put that as a parameter. And then we have a couple of cleaning, and we do some zipping and so on, because it's part of our build process. But again, if you don't need those steps, or if you need different steps, either it's already available on the VSO task GitHub, or you think it will be useful for the community, so you do a pull request and you add it to the VSO tasks, or you just think it's only useful for you guys, so you can just do some PowerShell scripting. And then the last step is to, in order to just take what you want to keep from the build outcome and save it as an item related to the build. You have a couple of other options. You can specify the repository, you can specify some variables which will either be or not be available when you queue the build. You can do some triggers, so you can, for example, trigger a build every commit or every 5 commits or things like that. Or you can also schedule the build like every night or anything like that. You have other settings. For example, this build requires grunt to be installed and npm to be installed because I used the npm and grunt steps. But and again, if I want to add other requirements I have, like for example, we obfuscate our code, so .NET Reactor is a requirement, I can add it manually too. And what this will do, as I told you, Visual Studio Online, we will look at the agent profile and say, okay, are you able to build this build or not? And this is how it's going to dispatch the different builds. And then you have a retention policy and the history of the changes you've made. And as I was telling you, you can do a diff. Well, it's a JSON based, so comparing the differences and so on is very easy. If you can do a diff right within Visual Studio Online, or you can do it with any other tool if you want. And once you've built something, so you can go to all the definitions to see all your builds. You can go to the details of your build, and once you've done that, the great thing about it is it will link, if your developers have done their work properly, it will link all the associated change sets in the source control, so all the modification in the source code, and also if they have linked to the change set the task of the particular items they were working on, you will also have a detail, which is great because for every build you know why you triggered that build, what changes does it bring, why did you do those changes, and why was it required, and so on. And you have the ability to tag the build and to give some information about the build. Which gives you a lot of details of, about what happened and what you need to focus on. And again, in the artifacts, you have the outcome you collected in the build, we publish build artifacts, and you have the ability to download those or to push those to other platforms like the Azure storage and so on. So let's first see a non-line project like an application. Again, we have multiple definitions. We have some continuous integration, which only builds and runs some integrated tests, and we also have the continuous deployments option. So let's have a look first at the continuous integration. This one is a bit different. For example, it will restore or remediate packages because we don't include those on the source controls to have a lighter footprint for the sources. And it also runs some tests and so on. And if we have a look to one of the outcomes of this one, and as you can see, I have all the details again, but if I have some automatic tests, I have all the details about the test and the reports and so on. If you click on the details of the test, you can see that you have useful metrics about the outcome, which passed, which failed, and we would also have details if it fails and why and so on. So this is really useful when you try to understand and you try to maintain the quality to a certain level. That being said, let's get back to the slide. Let's talk now about deployments. You have a few deployments options available with Visual Studio Online or TFS. First thing you have is the release manager. So this is only available right now on premises. It's kind of a lab where you say, okay, this environment is QA, this one is dev, this one is prod. Here's the deployment workflow. First, you need to push it to dev, run all the automated tests. If it passes, push it to QA, run all the manual tests. If it passes and somebody says, okay, it's good for production, it will then go to production. So this is another part. After the build, you have a release pipeline system in place, and it will orchestrate all the deployments. But this is again only available on premises right now with 2013. You have the Lab Studio, so this has been existing since 2008 or maybe 2010. This one, you connect your TFS with the whole system center stack, and it will be able to orchestrate environment provisionings and run automatically the test and stuff like that. But this requires a lot of setup and a huge infrastructure to set up in order to work with it. But this is available for on-premises and online. It works for both, but you have a lot of setup to do. Also, keep in mind that right now, Release Manager and Lab Studio are only capable of using builds coming out from the XAML build definitions, but not from the 2015 build definitions. Then you have PowerShell. PowerShell is a great tool to do some deployments, especially now that you have general PowerShell deployments. And one tip I will give you is use dash variables at every command. So you have all the details of what happened when you executed the scripts. And the last one is the SO build task, as we will see. You have some tasks to automate the deployment or targeting Azure environment. And again, if you're missing something, just use a PowerShell task and use some PowerShell. It's super easy. It's very useful. It's a quick way. So let's talk first about full trust solutions deployments. It's very easy to automate because we have done that since 2010, and it requires a lot of PowerShell, but it takes a lot of time, and also it brings a lot of constraints, like I need to have the security access to the platform, I need to have a network connection, I need to have SharePoint installed, and so on. And it can be complicated, but it's easy to automate. We have a clear articles and documentation about that on the internet. Apps deployments on the other side, you have two options. Either you're doing a SharePoint hosted application, so only JavaScript basically hosted by Microsoft, by SharePoint, and the whole application only runs within the browser. Or you have a provider hosted application, which basically setups all the endpoints and so on to communicate with your websites or web applications behind, which could be hosted in Azure or on a totally different platform. The great thing is, if it's Azure, you can very easily automate the deployment because it's already here within the SO tasks. The only tricky part is with the ID secrets, which I would advise you to manage via some settings, team project settings as we've seen, and with PowerShells to do the replacements and some tweaking before building the application. And for the SharePoint hosted deployment, for the both kind of apps, the tricky parts will come when you want to actually deploy the .app file to a target environment. It's going to be a bit complicated or tricky because not everything is into place and it's not very well documented. Then you can have multiple targets, either on-premises farms or on-the-fly farms on Azure or Office 365 tenants. On-premises farms, On-premises farms, basically, you have a farm that you have to maintain, and it's expensive and it's hard to maintain, especially when you deploy buggy components, and you just run it on prem and try to maintain it and deploy to that farm. It's easier to deploy to, but it's very hard to maintain and to back up and so on. On-the-fly farms on Azure would be the fact that you deploy farms for every build and so on in Azure, do some extra configuration with, for example, tools installer and so on, or maybe some restoring of content and things like that. Then deploy your application and or your solution, do your test, and then trash the environment. This requires a lot of PowerShell, and this will increase a lot your deployments and your build times. So it might be a good opportunity for huge complicated systems, but it will require a lot of investments. And then Office 365, you don't take care about maintaining the environment and so on. The only tricky part is being able to actually deploy some stuff to that, because it's very well contained and secure. So sometimes it can be complicated and it will require a lot of PowerShell to do that. But with PowerShell and the system model, you should be able to deploy your applications. So one of the questions you might have is, should my SharePoint farm configured on my build machine? Meaning that I don't only have the bits, but I also have a farm running and so on. The pros are the deployment will be easier. That's one first consideration. The unit testing will be easier. As you have a farm, you can run unit tests locally because you don't need to communicate or deploy or try to deploy and then run the MS test outside of the build process and so on. The cons are have a way easier footprint. So your build machine will become way harder to maintain and will be slower and might impact the build output. Because you have deploy your components, it will be in the GAC or so on, or deploy on your system. So that being deployed might impact the next build you are building. Keep that in mind. You have advantages and disadvantages of using one or another. Personally, I would not recommend having your farm created on the build machine. Those should be separated. The build machine should have the latest footprint possible to not have an impact on the builds and to be easy to maintain. This one is an application workflow application we built for one of our customers. And as I was showing you, we deploy their builds directly to their target environment. So every time we say, okay, we want the next build, we first deploy to QA, and every time we say, okay, QA is good, we then trigger a build to deploy to production. And the way this works, I'm going to work on QA because I don't want to deploy production, obviously, is you have build steps. So the way this works is, again, you have some build steps, so we restore the nuggets, and then we first package the application, so the .app file, and then what we do is we also package the web deployment package. One thing you have to know, if you use SharePoint applications in combination with Azure websites or something you deploy on RAS, basically, using the web deployment method, if you want to package both of them, the deploy on build and web publish method will conflict with the is packaging arguments. So you have to do two separate build steps in order to have your two outcomes, your two packages, the app for SharePoint and the web deployment package for web stuff. So that's one tricky part you have to know, otherwise you will miss one or the other one. Once it has done that, it will run some unit tests for our repositories and so on. And then we have some Azure deployment steps. So basically what we did is we went on the subscription, exported some certificates, configured the environment where it should be deployed to, and we just looked for the web deployment package, and this deploys automatically. And if we have a look to one of the outcomes of this build system, again, you have all the steps and the results on the left. And you can see here that it successfully deployed the package to their Azure website. We don't deploy the app automatically on this project because the customer wants to have control over that. But again, if we wanted to do so, we just would have needed two things. First one, a bit of PowerShell to do so, and the second one being credentials to access to their target website. Which again, we should store not in the config files or not in the PowerShell scripts themselves, but within the service configuration within the project. Right. All right. Now let's talk a bit about testing. So this is the final touch to QA. If you want to ensure that you have working bits and something working before you ship it to the customer. So test is a huge domain, and we will do a high-level introduction to that. Again, there's tons of awesome books about it, tons of awesome articles on the internet. So I really encourage you to read about the methodology, the tools. So first you have some different test levels. You have the unit testing, which will ensure that the technical component works properly. With the load testing to ensure that the performance is good, or the scale works. You have integration testing, which will ensure that your system or your service or application works well in combination of with target system or other applications. You have the system testing, you have the functional acceptance testings, and so on. You have tons of test levels, different test levels, in order to test different things and to ensure on different levels your applications is meeting the expectations. Then you have test types. You have installation tests, compatibility tests, regression tests. So these ones are very useful. Those are the ones which will allow you to ensure you didn't break anything developing a new feature or fixing it. You have the destructive tests. So those ones are where you try to actually break your applications to see how it reacts. Security, something but for security. Internalization and localization, A/B testing, and so on. You have tons of test types and so on. And then you have the tools. For if we only focus on unit tests, you have three of those. Well, three famous ones for .NET, which are NS Test, NUnit, XUnit, and so on. And you have for JavaScript some tasking tools which can do tests too, like with Grunt and Gulp and so on. So in the SharePoint world, testing, the provisioning model is complex and closed with XML definitions and so on. And the object model is hard to emulate or test against because you have to run the working SharePoint, so it's complicated. And with full trust solutions, it's almost impossible to do anything else than unit testing, and it always comes at great investments. You have to invest a lot in mocking, in faking, in abstracting the object model and so on. So you have to carefully care and plan your tests, so you're not actually testing SharePoint, but your actual solution and so on. And load testing also will be impacted because SharePoint in small environment has huge variations in terms of performances. So the only test we found to be useful for full trust solutions and not to require tons of investments are actually functional testings to make sure that our application delivers the value it's supposed to do. And then for applications, it's easy to do for everything which is out of SharePoint, so Azure storage, database, anything like that. And it's harder to integrate for SharePoint hosted applications because again, the deployment is complex and you have to have an environment up and running. So unit testing will really depend on how you architecture your application. And what we've found lately to be useful is the DDD model, which is domain-driven design, which helps you to truly separate the concerns of each part of the application. And as I've already shown you, the unit test of the press. So again, to get back at the waterfall project, every time we build, basically, you can see that you have your unit test results integrated directly to the build outcome and build status. And if you click on that, you will have some beautiful charts about which has passed, which has failed, and so on. And you will have also the details if it has failed, which is really useful to ensure that everything works properly and you haven't broken anything implementing the features. And for Arsenic, what we've done basically is we use a test manager to define a task plan, and we do some manual testing with steps to reproduce. I won't demonstrate that right now because we are running out of time, but you can find a lot of documentation about it on the web. It's pretty well documented if you look for manual testing with TFS. Now it's time to conclude this session. So as a conclusion, what we've done is we've saved a lot of time because we've automated a lot of stuff, which is time we used to spend building, testing, deploying, and so on. Now that we don't spend that time doing that, we can do other stuff like actually developing software. We also have consistent builds, so builds are no more impacted by our dev machine, by the dev conditions, by the fact that I may have forgotten to do something in the 46 steps required to build my project and so on. And we've automated some tests to make sure we don't break anything every time we implement new things, and the performance are still steady, and so on. And overall, what it means is that the quality increased, so we deliver software of better quality to the customer, or we deliver services working better. Overall, what that means is it's either we've saved some money because we spend less time doing stuff that can be automated, or we made more money for the company because the quality is better and because the customer trusts more our applications and our developments, and it works better. So thanks very much for attending this session. I hope you enjoyed it and you liked the subject and learned plenty of stuff. I have other sessions during the collab 365. One of these is in French, is Traduire SharePoint de A à Z. It's about translation and language management within SharePoint. The other one is also in French, is L'importance des métadonnées, which is in French too. It's about metadata in SharePoint and search and so on. And the other one is using Graph APIs. It's about Office 365 and via Microsoft Office Graph and the APIs and how we can use that in our applications. Again, thanks. Feel free to ask any questions or to reach me after this event, and have a great Collab 365 event. See you soon. Bye-bye.